I'm here with Mark Guerringue, who is sitting actually on the left this time. We switched, and yeah, he's going to argue from the left point of view, and I will argue from the right, or the conservative point of view, or the issues of the day. And there's never a shortage of them. And our producer has given us two to start right off with. We don't know what these are. So let's begin. At last night's Democrat debate, candidate Steve Bullock said he did not believe that the liberal views of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders were grounded in reality, and asserted that those views would cost Democrats the election. Do you agree with Bullock that a more liberal candidate cannot beat Trump in 2020? All right. I do agree with that. So I guess, but then all of the 20-something candidates, I would have put well to the left of center. For years I would have done that, but what is the center, that has shifted, at least in the minds. I mean, perception is reality in politics, someone said. And so what shapes perception? Well, media shapes perception. And where we get our information and what information we get is pretty much controlled by media. So media reports, most media reports these candidates as moderate. Now, they would call Bullock moderate. They would call even, what's his name, from Maryland,
John Delaney.
Delaney, yeah, they would call him centrist. Now, I wouldn't call him centrist, but I never would have. But maybe now things have shifted to the point where if we're discussing the Democrat Party, then Delaney would seem to be a centrist, and so would Bullock, and so would Hickenlooper, and people like that. So, but can somebody like an Elizabeth Warren and a Bernie Sanders, who are mentioned in this question, could they beat Donald Trump? If the election, I mean, anything can happen between now and the election, which is almost over a year away, and that's an eternity in politics, and any number of shifts can occur. Trump could say and do some stupid thing that could finally sink him, and Bernie or Elizabeth could do the same. So, I mean, you can't predict. But were the election held tomorrow, I don't think they would have a chance, either one. What do you think?
Well, I mean, a couple things. One is that the polling, what I find interesting is the polling, pretty much everybody on the polls show that they would beat Trump. And Trump consistently can't get over 42%, 41%, all that, which is just historically too low to win. But I think because the pollsters got burned last time is that they're not touting it. I mean, nobody ever talks about the polls, but, you know, it's Elizabeth Warren 9% over, you know, 1-to-1 over Trump, and the media doesn't want to talk about it. I don't blame them because they got burned so bad, and it's because it's early. I do think the debate last night, I didn't watch much of it, but I watched a half an hour or so. I thought it was really one of the, I mean, regardless whether it was Democrat or Republican, I thought it was one of the best debates in a while. Like, it was really substantive. And the moderators, I mean, they were just...
the issues they were talking about were substantive.
And partly it was because the moderators were kind of ruthless. They just chopped them off within a minute. Usually,
Dick Tapper and Don Lemon.
It was Don Lemon and then Dana Bash, too, the CNN.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and usually they always have the rules, and they just keep going, and people interrupt, and blah, blah, blah. And they didn't. So I thought it was pretty good. And it was also interesting because there really was a clear difference. And the Republicans last time, and we always know that in the primaries, everybody goes to the extremes. And the Republicans last time, they were all trying to get the toughest on immigration, the toughest this. There was really no separation except in personality with Trump. And with the Democrats, it's not. I mean, there is the way primary politics should be, there's a difference. And I agree with the moderates, and I do think they're moderate. I'm not sure that, I mean, what's his name from Montana? He's in a red state. He's a Democratic governor, and John Delaney's a moderate guy. I mean, if you're a Democrat and you believe in capitalism like Hickenlooper, and you believe in those systems, and you don't want to have Medicare for all, and you don't want to give undocumented people health care, I mean, what else is there? I mean, you know, I mean, so I think they are pretty mainstream Democrat in the Democrat sense. I mean, they have climate change and all that. So I guess the question was, about
Could
who could be
warrant
whom, I think we both kind of said it in our own ways. We don't know. I mean, I do think, I will say that my gut feeling is, and Tom Friedman, New York Times columnist, you know, he said after the last debate, he was shocked about the Democrats coming out with the Medicare for all and all that. And I think that's totally the wrong way for the Democrats to go. And I don't think it'll end up on their platform at the end of the day.
The front runners are Biden still, Warren, I think, in second place,
And Bernie.
Bernie, and Kamala Harris is
Yeah,
a little
way
bit behind.
yeah.
It changes time to time. After the first debate, she zoomed up, but then she's on stage tomorrow, because both Biden and Harris will be there, the two biggies.
Tonight.
Yes. Did I say tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, tonight.
But it doesn't matter when we say today or tomorrow, right?
I guess not, since, you know, yeah, this show is going to
Right.
run for however long, and yeah, things won't change. Things will change. Our commentary will not.
Right.
Let's see, but I'm interested to watch. You know, even though I don't agree with very much of what they say, although I did. I guess I agree with Hickenlooper. Certainly, he believes in capitalism, a free enterprise system, and those who say we need to preserve private insurance, we can't, you know, eliminate that. But yeah, I agree with the tone of this question. That Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are not grounded in reality with their particular things that they want to propose, but yet they are the ones to beat. And Bernie has moved that party leftward, and other more pragmatic Democrats, and I would include the Speaker of the House, Pelosi, in that category. They see the political reality that people are just not going to vote for this kind of left-wing stuff.
Yeah, and it gets hard. You know, part of that is the politics. There's so many layers of the politics. Like Hillary, I mean, but the primaries are always about that. You know, I mean, Trump, what did he promise? He was promised he was going to lower health care. Well, nothing's happened with health care. He promised he was going to build the wall. Oh, that was ridiculous. Nobody ever thought he could do it. So everybody makes promises. But Hillary was such a, you know, technician or incrementalist, saying, well, we can do a little bit, but she never caught fire. People in the primaries, part of this whole thing is that you want the primary base, Democrat or Republican, to be motivated by something. And you're not going to motivate somebody if you say, well, we're going to increase Medicaid by funding by $2 billion. You know what I mean? So I think they always struggle with that game. The Democrats lost because Trump had the fire, the emotion. Hillary didn't, you know? And so this time, part of the value of having Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, particularly they're so good at it. I mean, Elizabeth Warren is smart as anybody. She has she really is. I mean, they're both very good. And but it helps fire up the base. Where that ends up, it'll just be interesting. And it'll be probably interesting, it'll be mostly interesting because it'll just be what happens to Biden.
Tonight, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, in general, but also tonight, you know, because he's in the moderate camp. I mean, he wasn't in the first debate. And so he wasn't there. It was left to John Delaney and what's his name, the Montana governor.
Well, Iowa is a relatively conservative state, but the Democrats are going to vote in this caucus. And so how much, you know, how left compared to the nation as a whole, okay? I mean, 51% think Trump is a racist. I saw a poll recently. I mean, that's astonishing. 51% think that he's racist. Only 41% believe George Wallace was a racist back in 1968, in that election cycle. So that, anyway, there's so many things. It's always interesting. It's always interesting.
Yeah.
But as we become more polarized as a country, and we are, then it gets more interesting, but also scary in some ways. And I'm tempted. I mean, I invited, maybe it was a year ago, Bill Marvel to come on. I don't know if you saw that program, but what parallels do you see now with, 1859 for the Civil War? And are things leading up? What are the chances? And he said, yes, I see the polarization, I see the issues, but geographically they were in alignment in 1859, north-south. But and that's not true now. So, but he said the polarization and the animosity, he said, is equal.
Yeah,
to
I mean
what
that's
it
a good
was.
one. I mean we're not going to
Yeah.
debate Bill. He's not here, but I mean you got to put.
I'm going to invite him back, is what I was leading
Yeah,
to.
you got to put Civil War as number one. To me, you got to put '60s as number two, and maybe this is. I mean, we're not burning the cities down. I mean, we don't have the big demonstrations, but that's another topic. How about number two?
All right, here we go. Do you believe the U.S. government is doing enough to ensure election security, specifically with regard to foreign interference? Well, I suppose. I don't think foreign interference was a factor. I think that was way overblown. It was a manufactured crisis.
The Mueller said that
On
they
the part-
they were in all 50 states, but go ahead.
on the part of Democrats. I'm not saying there wasn't any foreign interference at all, but there's always foreign interference. And if in elections worldwide, especially since the Cold War, the United States was always involved in election interference. So was the Soviet Union. We haven't stopped. They haven't stopped. There's always been. The ways in which they interfere have changed because now we have social media, and now I don't use social media much, and so I'm not versatile in it certainly, but what I read indicates that it's powerful, and most of the people in my family, my extended family, my family of origin in Massachusetts, people my age, and my children and now grandchildren, that generation, they're all involved in it. They all communicate
Sure,
with
of course.
it, and so they're doing things that I don't know about. But didn't you see that on Facebook, or didn't you? No, I don't, because I just don't go on there.
Yeah, but okay. So, but you know about Moscow Mitch, right?
I've heard this phrase mentioned, and he responded somehow to it, called it ridiculous.
Yeah,
Why are they saying that?
because he's blocking all the legislation to help stop the Russian interference. He just blocks it all. Like 11 states don't have they want to have paper ballot backups. 11 states don't. He blocked the legislation to accommodate those states. He's blocked legislation to help monitor the big tech companies, the Facebooks and all that. I mean, that stuff really happened, and he's doing it to protect. One is to create chaos, because if Trump loses, he'll just throw it into turmoil by saying the elections were rigged, as he promised to do last time, and he's just doing it for politics. And so it's bipartisan. All the intelligence agencies said it was, you can debate how much interference there was, but there was in all 50
They did.
states.
That's
and
true.
they were coalesced on this, and Trump has denied it. As you know, he's taken Putin's word at it, like in Helsinki. He just said, he came off strong. I believe him. I mean, just these ridiculous things. And, and the things were happening, and it's not just, and it's the dark money that the Republicans use on Facebook, where they set up these automatic, false Facebook accounts where, for instance, many people got texts, many people got Facebook messages that said, particularly blacks, they said, if you text this number, you will vote for Hillary. If you text, like this is a new way to vote. There's a new way to vote. But you can vote for Hillary by texting this number. So these are things that were going on.
So they wouldn't go to the polls.
Yeah. So I think the Moscow Mitch is a moniker that has some truth to it. I mean, it's just awful. I mean, like literally, it's bipartisan to pass it, except McConnell will not bring this legislation to vote. He won't bring it up to vote.
Yeah.
It's not like it's being voted and defeated. He won't bring it up.
Right. Well, that's his power, and the Speaker of the House has the same power in the House. You mentioned paper ballots. So part of what he's blocking was states using paper ballots as a backup. Did I hear you right about that?
What I understand is there are 11 states. I know that what I do know, there are 11 states that don't have paper backup ballots, and so there's legislation somehow is going to assist them so they could have backups.
Okay.
And he's blocking
So
that.
federal assistance to states
Right.
who wish to have this
Right.
backup. I personally would like to see us go all the way to paper ballots, and eliminate electronic voting, which would seem to be more easier to manipulate. Not that, stuffing ballot boxes has never happened. That, you can't make a perfect system. It depends on the people who are implementing it in the local areas. But it is a state issue. I mean, states decide how they're going to conduct elections, and it's not a federal issue. So Mitch is blocking federal money that would assist states to do
I think
what
that's
they
what
chose.
it is. But he's
choose
not
to
doing
do.
it for a states' rights issue. I mean, I know it's one of your beliefs about states, and there's obviously all kinds of funding going back and forth and assistance from the feds on state on everything, right? I mean, whether
Yes,
it's
there
roads,
is, too much.
education, all that
Yes,
stuff. So
yes.
I don't think it's not an extraordinary thing. The states want some help, like they want help with a lot of different things. So, I mean, I don't know this, but my guess would be he's not making a states' rights issue. He just doesn't want to do it.
So you seem to be implying that Mitch is trying to allow foreign interference in our election.
It's part of the. I think part of it is that he's just singing the same song that Trump is. Trump has denied there's really any interference. So he's just doing it. Why do we need this legislation? There's no interference. So it really is that sort of putting up that political perspective that we don't have to do anything because it's not a problem.
You mentioned that Trump's comments, right before the election of 2016, which he said this is rigged. And when he was asked the question, would you accept the results
Right.
when they come? He said, no, because I think it's rigged. And he made statements that it was rigged. Now, Obama at the time said it's impossible to rig an election. It's just too complicated, and no one could do that. It's too decentralized, and it's really not a threat, and so forth. Do you think he was right?
I think it is impossible. One is that the nomenclature changes just in a few years. So in terms of rigging an election like in the old days with Kennedy in Chicago, I don't think that's possible that way. But rigging is different than influencing. And so we didn't really realize the extent of all this Russian stuff until after the election. Prior to that, I don't remember specifically, but nobody talked about it because nobody knew about it.
Didn't they use social media? The
They did.
Russians were alleged to use social media.
Yeah, they did. But it was happening in real time. So when Trump said it in a convention, this is just my interpretation, that Obama interpreted Trump's rigging in the conventional definition, like you stuff the ballot box in that way.
Yeah.
That's different. We've learned since then. The election goes on. We've learned is that it wasn't rigged, but it was influenced. You influenced
Okay,
voters'
I got you.
behavior. So I think there's a pretty big difference.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now to say, I don't think anybody ever says, oh, the Russians are rigging the election. They just say they influencing the
Influence it.
election,
Well.
and there's a difference. But Trump at the time, he didn't believe anything. He didn't believe the economic numbers. He didn't believe the polls. Like he just wouldn't believe any of the numbers that didn't suit him.
He won. Big shock.
Oh yeah,
Major
no
shock.
question about that.
There's so many places to go with this. I think I'll shift gears. Did you have something that you wanted to bring up?
Well, I just wanted to get your take on the Mueller testimony.
His appearance says two committees. Wow. I was astonished. He didn't have his act together, certainly.
He didn't want to be there.
He didn't want to be there. He was coerced by the committee chairs to be there. I think they wanted, Nadler and Schiff wanted to have a show. They wanted, because they don't believe the American people read the Mueller report or were familiar with what was in it. And I don't think they accepted the results, that the essential results was, no, there was no collusion between.
Criminal. Well, go ahead.
There's no evidence of collusion between Russian election interference and the Trump campaign. That was the ultimate
No,
statement.
but there was no evidence. There was plenty of evidence. As he said in his testimonies, that if he wasn't president, he would be indicted. That's what Mueller said.
He said that. That's true.
That's the big takeaway.
Oh, to you, that's the big takeaway.
Well, that's what he
'cause
said. I mean, that's what he said. That's as powerful since he.
that was elicited from him.
Yeah, well, elicited. Yeah, he was
quick.
asked the question, and he said yes. If he wasn't president, he would be indicted. That's a pretty
Do
powerful
you
thing.
think Mueller wrote the report?
I don't know. I mean, do I think he wrote it? I don't know how those kind of staff things work.
I doubt he did.
I don't think he wrote 800 pages.
I don't
mean,
think
that's-
he's familiar with what's in there.
I
He looked very sad. Now, either from the time that he was appointed to now, which is 2 years, he has had sudden onset Alzheimer's, dementia.
is that true?
I don't know.
Oh.
It was evidence that he didn't know what was in the report.
Well,
he wasn't comprehending the questions that
He
were
couldn't
being
hear.
asked of
He
him.
couldn't hear a lot of them.
So he has a hearing
I
disability?
don't know, but they were saying he just couldn't hear.
Well, he asked them to repeat the question over and over. Now, is that because he didn't hear it, or he couldn't keep it in his head long enough to summon an answer to it?
I don't know.
And then when people ask questions, in your report you said this, and then he had to go to the report
Yeah.
to verify that that's what he said. He couldn't remember that that's what
Yeah,
he
not
said.
some of it, for sure. I mean, it just was a
He
very.
looked doddering.
Yeah, he looked like a guy who absolutely didn't want to be there. But that's not the point.
He
I mean,
looked
I don't know if you're.
incompetent.
Well, those are the optics, and that's what Republicans say. And the Democrats said the same thing. They said they're not helping the Democrats. But the point is that he did say that the president would be indicted if he wasn't, that he could be indicted if he wasn't a sitting president. And I think that's very powerful. There's plenty of evidence that he influenced the campaign by influenced the investigation by trying to fire McGahn, by having McGahn try to fire Mueller, by firing Comey, which he admitted on TV with Lester Holt that he did it to slow down the investigation. I mean, there's all kinds of obstruction of justice there. There's no question about that. So there's absolutely enough reason. It's a political question whether the Democrats should proceed with an impeachment, but it's clearly he's done enough that would warrant an impeachment hearing.
So you believe that he did cooperate with the Russians
He
and
encouraged
to
them.
influence the election?
He influenced them, absolutely. He met with them. They met with him. He was dealing with the Russians during the election about his hotel in Moscow. I mean, so he had connections. He had connections with them. He encouraged them to release the WikiLeaks. He encouraged the Russians to go into Hillary's email. They met with the Russians in Trump Tower. I mean, yeah. Absolutely, but the thing is, it's not even the
Okay,
Russian.
so you believe they cooperated. I'm
Yeah.
surprised. So you don't agree with the thrust of the Mueller report that you think there is evidence in those
Yeah.
instances that you just listed.
Now I don't
Okay.
know if those things are where they raise the level of filing charges, but I do know. I mean, I do believe that what he tried to do afterwards to stop the investigation, that's impeachable. Has nothing to do with the Russians. Firing Comey and telling him we're doing that because we want to slow down the investigation. Telling McGahn, which he resigned over, having him wanted to fire Mueller. Those are things, that's Saturday Night Massacre material.
There was a quote in the Mueller report, and I wish I had it with me. It's in my previous notes. We couldn't find examples of where there was any cooperation between the Trump campaign and Russian activities pertaining to the election. It's black and white, that we couldn't find any connections. So now, if there's no connection, then there's no crime. And as I asked you before, how do you obstruct something that didn't happen?
He obstructed the investigation. There was a real investigation, Tom, and he tried to obstruct it, and that's impeachable. Clear as that. That's why Mueller said it. I mean, it has nothing to do with the Russians at that point. It has something to do with the investigation. Remember the Saturday Night Massacre with Dean. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's just clear as a bell. And that doesn't even go into his campaign finance stuff with paying off Stormy Daniels on October 22nd, 3 weeks before the election, which would have cost him the election if that had come out.
I think that he gave that to the Southern District of New York, to the U.S. Attorney there, who ruled We dropped the case. Did you hear that?
No.
About a week or two ago, it was announced. Didn't get a lot of press because it didn't really fit the narrative. So that's gone as far as any kind of action, legal indictments or anything like that, as far as campaign finance goes. Now, I'll just state for the record, I think there was nothing to this. There never was anything to Trump campaign cooperating with the Russians to win this election or to influence this election. I believe it was completely made up by the Obama administration and the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee. And there is plenty of evidence for that. I believe that the Obama intelligence community was spying on the Donald Trump campaign, was spying on the Donald Trump transition, where after he won the election, and on the Donald Trump presidency, illegally.
Why, with all that stuff, and I know that's all your conspiracy stuff, but why is it that Trump has defended Putin so much and denied the Russian interference? When literally everybody else does. Now, why?
I believe you're going to see. I'm not going to go there.
No, but why? I mean, this is the basic question.
I'm going to finish
this
with
is the
what I was
This
saying.
is the question. Yeah, I know you're going to.
Right now, there is a special prosecutor. There is a grand jury who is investigating all of the things that I just said. And I think we can expect indictments to come down against Comey, against Brennan, and against other members of the, like Strzok and other people in DOJ for doing exactly what I said. And also people, the FBI, for using NSA wiretaps, which they had been doing since 2012. Every phone call we make, every email we send, every kind of electronic communication of every citizen of the United States is kept in a database. And that the Obama administration was tapping that database. And this was reported to the Trump campaign by Admiral Wallace. I mean, Admiral, gosh, what's his name? Not Wallace, it's not, it'll come to, Rogers, Admiral Rogers. And this is all going to come out. This is something
well,
that,
then when it comes out, it comes out. I mean, I accept
today,
when people are indicted. I accept that just the way that all the people in the Trump administration were indicted, that you think is part of the deep state. But you know,
I do.
right? So because
strongly
those people who are indicted and who are caught lying and admit to a lies, they're just like the Flynns and the campaign manager and assistant campaign manager. Those people are just put up to it somehow. But these indictments are going to be the real indictments, right?
He wouldn't go. He was going to be asked, why did you go so hard after Manafort? Why didn't you go after Tony Podesta, the brother of the Hillary's campaign manager, doing the same thing in Ukraine, for which Manafort is in solitary confinement?
Okay, well, we'll see. But if those indictments come out,
were you aware that that was going on?
Well, I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
No, I don't.
Oh, all right.
I guess it'll come out. It'll come out.
I believe it will.
Yeah. But that doesn't answer the basic question: why doesn't Trump, where everybody does, accept the Russian interference? Not the saying he colluded, but why doesn't he accept it?
Why doesn't Trump accept Russian interference?
Yeah, that there
he should acknowledge it because
why
it's
doesn't he?
there.
I mean,
I don't really know.
So there's got to be a reason, right?
I think it's a mistake not to acknowledge it. Either that, I think he must know.
But it doesn't you must have to. I mean, it's such a serious threat to our national security because it's going to continue. It's amazing to me that a president, and the fact that you just kind of like diminish it to saying, oh, he must acknowledge it. Everybody's freaked out about this thing. All the national security agencies, our politicians, and Trump is saying he believes Putin. I mean, it just seems unbelievable to me. So there has to be a reason.
I'm not. I mean, he said it. I think it was stupid because he undercut his own intelligence people, like Dan Coates especially, because Coates made one statement and then Trump contradicted him in this press conference that he had with Putin. I think it was just dumb, politically dumb.
It's dumb. I'm just saying, why do you think why won't?
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
it's
don't you
hard
think?
for me to say. Sometimes I think I understand why he does the things that he's doing. Like why was he baiting the squad? And why is he baiting Cummings now?
Right.
And people, even David Axelrod would say, This is sharp. He's really, he knows what he's doing, and it's effective. And the Democrats are playing right into it. And he's making these people the face of the Democrat Party. And it's a brilliant strategy and so forth.
Well, I don't think Axelrod said it was brilliant.
No. But I was trying to summarize what he said. He said, this is what Trump is doing, and it's working, essentially. So you did hear that?
Yeah, no, I know. I think he's doing it. I think he's
So,
both.
but then he said just the other day, somebody in a press conference, you know, is this a strategy on your part? No, it's not. You know, now, I don't know. Maybe he has such good instincts. Maybe he just does these things off the cuff. There's plenty of evidence for that. You know, I'm staying up late. Doesn't get much sleep at night, and these people are really pissing me off. So I'm going to go, you know, for Cummings or for Elon Omar. That kind of thing, and he's just impulsive and he can't control himself. Now, there's that possibility, or there's this possibility that he is just a brilliant political mastermind that, you know, I'm going to press this button over here because that's going to help me in the 2020 election, and I'm going to paint the Democrats the way Axelrod suggests and many others suggest that that's what he's doing. Which one is true? Some combination of the two? I just don't know. I really don't. I don't. I just like what he is doing.
The race baiting?
No, not that.
Oh, you just said that. That's what we were talking about. So you like the race baiting?
I don't even buy that it's race baiting. The Democrats, I think, see racism everywhere. I submitted a column this week. I don't know if they gave it to you to look at, but I couldn't even put everything that I believe in there. Racism would get people to cringe. You know, I don't want to criticize these policies because they're being espoused by the Congressional Black Caucus, or that somebody might think that because I'm that, you know, Obama used that as a shield, that, you know, and Holder used that as a shield, that you can't criticize what we're doing or we're going to play the race card with you, and media would be happy to cooperate. Now, the only specific examples that I have, when I've asked people, what specifically do you think makes Trump racist? One thing would be something having to do, back in the 70s, when he was sued, or his father was sued, and he was part of the organization, but that his father ran, not to rent to black people in their properties. Okay, so that was settled out of court. There was no admission of guilt or whatever. I don't know much about that.
Well, he took out those full-page ads back then.
Yes.
Blah blah about those, and then they were exonerated just recently. And he was asked about it in the last 6 months. He says, "Oh, there's two sides of the story.
Well,
all those black guys, they didn't do it."
I'll be looking into that case because I remember writing about that case
back
when it happened.
But that's what's happened.
Okay, I can't.
Okay.
I don't know enough to comment.
I mean, he says that he has a long. I mean, how did Trump even get to the national stage?
The only other thing that I think might be considered circumstantial evidence of racism was something recent when he said that these 4 members of the squad should go back to where they came from. He's stupid to not know that 3 of them were born in the United States and only 1 was born in a foreign country. But to use that phraseology, that phraseology was used by people who were admitted racists in the 60s especially, and prior to.
Which word?
To say, send them back where they came from. So that is, you know, to use the phraseology that some racists use is a stretch, but yet it is somewhat evidence. Now,
it's a lot of evidence.
The Central Park 5, I don't know. Like I said, I can't comment. But the lawsuit, the discrimination lawsuit in the 70s, that's hard evidence.
What about him? How did he get on a national stage 4 or 5 years ago?
By saying that, oh, you mean
Trump.
Why don't you tell me?
It was the birther thing. It was the Obama birth. He led that effort about he wanted to send people to Hawaii and all that. So I mean, that's a total racist thing.
Why is that racist?
Because it's totally unfounded. It's just trying to.
But why is it racist?
Because he's only doing it because he's black.
How do you know?
How do I know? Because that's his modus operandi. It's only the people. He only talks like this to people who are black and to people who are brown. I mean, it's just, I mean, whether it's,
Obama was the most left-wing senator in the Senate. Is it possible that he was against Obama for that reason, and not because he was black?
no,
There's
because it was
no
a racist,
evidence.
because it's a race-baiting thing. The whole Bertha thing is just a known way to attack somebody. It's race baiting. It's making that person black, not.
That's a stretch.
No, it's just obvious. I mean, the whole Axelrod thing that you're talking about, to bring it around there, is about race baiting. I mean, he could be brilliant race baiter, but it's really about engendering that racial strife, and that's. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's just obvious. You know what the word? You know the Nazi propaganda film, The Eternal Jew?
Yes, I saw it.
All right. What's the key word in that? Infestation. Because they compared, the Nazis would use, we're being infested by the vermin being the Jews.
Yeah.
Trump uses infestation and infest and all these things. He's used it back in the 90s when he owned half of the Empire State Building, you know. Trump did. And he used about, we have to clean up the vermin because it's being infested. And so that's a word it's a terrible word that the Nazis used to describe the Jews for centuries. I mean, the Nazis not for centuries, but it's been that word.
With that.
And this is what he uses when he's talking about Elijah Cummings in Baltimore. It's the infestation. It's about the immigrants. We're being infested by these immigrants who are bringing crime. That's no coincidence. That's absolute. Now, maybe he's too stupid and he doesn't know the internal Jew, because I don't think he knows really anything in terms of regular facts, or someone's giving him those words, but it's just too much of it. But whether it's Axelrod's theory that he's smart in doing it, or whether he just doesn't know any better, there's absolutely no question that it's a racial slur to describe people as vermin. And
absolutely no question that it's a racial slur.
Right, and that's what he uses. Did he just use it with Elijah Cummings? He used it with the immigrants. I mean, it's just race baiting, and it may be a brilliant strategy according to Axelrod or anybody else. I wouldn't call it brilliant.
Well, why, when Bernie goes there and he calls it a third world country in Baltimore, and why, when the mayor of Baltimore tours it and says, "I can smell the dead rats"?
Yeah, that's different.
That's different.
He's describing it. But he's not using it in the political terms. That's what Trump is doing. This is what it goes. They're not saying when the mayor of Baltimore is doing that, he's not doing it for any. I don't know why he said that.
Or was it she?
Or she. But he's doing it as a strategy. It's race. I mean, it's just whether you agree with it or don't agree with it or believe it's race. It's a race-baiting strategy.
Democrats.
And that's what Axelrod was saying. That's the point he was making.
Cities that Democrats run in the United States are hellholes, where they've run for the last 50 or 60 years.
Gosh, I just think the cities that the Democrats run are the most progressive. I look at Portland, I look at Portsmouth, I look at Boston, I looked at New York, I look at, all these cities.
Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit.
Chicago.
Well,
Baltimore, Los Angeles, Oakland.
You think Los Angeles is some big hellhole, the whole thing? You think Chicago is? Tell that to the
I haven't
6
been to
million,
Los Angeles.
Tell that to the 6 million, 3 million people who live in Chicago.
The murder rate is terrible.
Yeah, well, it's
in
obviously
Baltimore, it's worse.
Yeah, but they're just obviously they're the ghettos, and it's just this terrible. You cut that out. I mean, that's just part of it. But you go to Baltimore, you go to the Inner Harbor, Baltimore is a huge, vibrant city. It's got these terrible problems, and so you're picking out places that we all know are terrible, and how to solve them. Who knows how anybody could do that? But they're south side of Chicago. We know that.
We do know
where are
that.
The cities? So why use those examples? Detroit, the car industry, we know that. The auto industry, what happened there? Although it's coming back, Detroit's coming back. I mean, it takes decades, but it's coming back. And so I look at it. The thing that strikes me when I watch the Democrats is that they're not proud of what's happening with the economy on the businesses. They're not out there trying to find another 10,000 coal miner jobs. It's all the entrepreneurs. It's all the high-tech industry. It's all the cities. It's all the Ubers. It's all the, it's all the little breweries and, all the restaurants and all these things that are happening in the cities, making things, entrepreneurs. And most of them happen to be all the internet stuff. They happen to be progressive and Democrat. And I don't understand why the Democrats don't talk about that, You know, because look what's happening in this country. Where the economic engine in this country? They're all the progressive states and most of the cities. Right?
No, I don't agree.
Really? California, New York, Massachusetts.
In San Francisco area, you have high tech, and they tend to be majorly left. And I think that
All of California.
all of California is left. I think, yeah. I think
Yeah.
what are there? 7 out of 50-something congressmen are Republicans, and the rest are
and-
Democrats.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it's
it's
clearly
like the 7th biggest
yeah.
economy in the world.
Yeah. They're giving free health care to illegal immigrants in California, just passed a law. And we had the Supreme Court say you can't ask if people are citizens, but you can ask what race they are. Why is that?
I don't know.
Which do you think is most important, their race or their citizenship? I think we should just eliminate questions of race. That government is the biggest purveyor of racism. They're constantly asking about what race this is, and media is another driver. The first black woman to do this and the first black to do that, and it's constantly making us conscious of what race we are and wanting people to think of the skin color as the most important aspect of their being.
That argument would make some sense if you at least acknowledge that what Trump is doing is race baiting. The fact that you're saying you're
No,
blaming the
I'm not gonna
media,
do that.
you're blaming it on a census form from the government, you're blaming it on media, and then you're just ignoring an obvious race baiting strategy as defending it. It just
Obvious
lacks
to you, not obvious to me in the least. These people, the people in the squad, they are way left. I mean, they're off the cliff left.
But they're American citizens.
They are
And
American
three of them
citizens,
were born
yes,
in this
and
country.
they happen to have dark skin.
Right.
Now,
You think Trump
is he not able to criticize these people who get so much attention? I mean, look how much attention
Criticizing
the
is
squad
one thing.
has gotten on the issues. These people, he says, they hate America. I think I could make a strong case that there's plenty of evidence that they hate America the way it is.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not
you think
kidding
these
in the
elected
least.
officials hate America?
Certainly not. And Ayanna Pressley, the one that we hear the least of, did you hear the statement she made last week? If you are white, I mean, no, he didn't talk about whites. If you're brown, you talk only about brown people and helping brown people. If you're queer, you talk only about helping queer people. And Hispanic and black, and went down the list and saying, what the heck kind of logic is that?
Well, you know, you're going to, I won't disagree with you, but if you look at, we could go through, there are 400 and whatever members of Congress, and there are people way on the left, and there are people way on the right that are scary, right? And maybe not scary to you on the right, but they're scary to a lot of people on the right, just as those left people. And I don't agree with what they're saying either, but that's not the point. If they were from Scandinavia, do you think Trump would have been saying, go back home? No way.
He would criticize what they're saying and what they're proposing.
He didn't say that. He said you should go back home.
He did say that. He said these people don't like it here. They're constantly criticizing America. They're not grateful for what we have here. They don't say anything good about America.
They're elected U.S. representatives.
Yes.
They represent a certain portion of our country.
Yes,
you don't
they
tell
do.
them, what does it mean?
Anti-American.
Oh, come on.
Yes, it is. I mean, the people who elected Ilhan Omar, there's a Somali, there's a Muslim majority in her district, many of them Somali. Many of them went over to fight for ISIS and came back to the United States.
The U.S. citizens who went over and fight for ISIS and came back and voted for her?
I'm telling you about the community from which she
No, but you said they went over and fight.
I didn't say anything about them voting.
How did she get elected?
The people who elected.
That's what you're saying. She only got elected by, you're saying that she got elected by Muslims. You're saying they went over to ISIS and fought for ISIS and came back and voted for her and elected her.
I don't know that those people...
Is that what you're saying?
That's possible that some of them did. No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that she comes from a community that is very left-wing,
right,
in which it also is very pro-Islam over being pro-American. Let me give you an example. Right now,
I know this is the hobby horse about this, the racism stuff, but the point isn't about that. I mean,
well, that's what you're saying.
No,
You're talking
I'm
about
saying,
why don't
no,
I
I'm not-
acknowledge
no, no,
that
no.
Trump is racist? I'm saying he's criticizing
saying-
these
he's
people
not
because of
critici-
the things they
he's not
say
criticizing.
and their positions.
He's not criticizing. Telling someone you go back home is different than a criticism. They are home, Tom. They live in the United States. They're citizens of the U.S. That's a very divisive, racial thing to say, is to go
You
back.
say it's racial.
Yeah, it is. You think if they were four
I don't see that it's racial.
You think if they were four Scandinavians, he would tell them to go back home? Why is it anytime he race baits, it's always with people who are brown or black?
In the around the late teens, right after World War II, before and during and after World War I, that is, early 20th century, we had an enormous influx of very left-wing people, mostly from Russia and Eastern Europe. Many of them were Jewish. And then they were fomenting revolution here in the United States. They were blowing things up. They were killing cops. They were organizing the Wobblies, the International Workers of the World, which was, like a central organization for that. And then then J. Edgar Hoover all of a sudden, starts this national, police force, not called the FBI then, called something else, and started deporting these people. And they were deporting them because of their attitudes, their political attitudes. They were all white. I better shut this off.
Were they
before it
citizens,
rings.
U.S. citizens?
Some of them, I don't know. I believe they were. But they were fomenting revolution. And lately I'm just not remembering names. There was one woman in particular that was the epitome of them. And she, I believe, was a citizen, and she was deported. And, oh gosh, I can't just.
It's just hard to believe they deported citizens.
But that's, and Woodrow Wilson was president for some of it. Now there's evidence of his racism, and way more evidence of his racism than there is of. I just don't see. The Central Park 5 thing, I will look into. I'm familiar with the crime, and I remember how it was prosecuted. I don't remember the exoneration of these people. But no, I don't think Trump is racist. I think this is now that the Russian thing has blown up for the scam that it was by the Democrats. Well, you don't agree. I think it was. I believe it was a scam, and the indictments that you're going to see pretty soon, and then maybe you'll acknowledge it then.
Nothing that you've predicted has happened yet.
I predicted that there would be nothing in the Mueller report.
And there is.
I predicted
Mueller
that
said
Kavanaugh would be confirmed.
Mueller said if he wasn't president, he could be indicted.
What else did I predict?
Wait a minute.
I think I've won all our bets.
Didn't Mueller say, so you don't agree that, you're saying because he's now infirm that you don't believe what Mueller said about how the indictments, that he could be indicted if he wasn't a president. That's what he said. That was your
A prosecutor
your defense
does not
against that.
Look to exonerate anybody. If you've read the Fifth Amendment, you know that the only evidence for an indictment is presented. You can't exonerate somebody. You can't prove that something didn't happen. Exoneration.
There was evidence.
When what's his name, the Texas congressman asked that question. Since when does anybody in the Justice Department look to exonerate anybody?
There was plenty of evidence. Mueller said it wasn't a witchcraft. I mean, I'm not going to go through it again. It's a waste of time. But do you have another subject? I mean, it's a waste of time. And Mueller said he could be indicted.
We spent a lot of time.
It's as simple as that.
A few shows ago, we were talking about this rapid onset gender dysphoria, right? And you spiked my column for it. And then I showed you evidence that the scientific study was valid and and its conclusions were not changed. On that subject, there's a guy named Dr. Alan Josephson, University of Louisville. He was just fired. He's a psychiatrist. He was head of child and adolescent psychiatry at the University of Louisville. And he was fired because he gave a speech at the Heritage Foundation on invitation. He's a doctor. He gave his medical opinion on this, which happened to agree with Lisa Littman's. He was not renewed. His contract was not renewed. He's filed a suit in federal court saying that he was wrongfully fired. Now, he basically says that any adolescent that goes to the doctor now can say to the doctor, I have these symptoms. I believe that I am not a woman, I'm not female, that I'm a male. And these are my feelings on it. Well, let me put it in exactly his words. I guess I can't put my finger on exactly that paragraph. Okay, he was asked, is it possible that we will get to a situation where a child comes into a clinic, diagnoses themselves, and prescribes their own treatment, and then clinicians are powerless to do anything but go right ahead? He says, we're very close to that now. There are now over 50 gender clinics in the United States, and these were unheard of only 7 or 8 years ago. And so he went on, I didn't copy it, but he went on to say that yes, an adolescent could go into a clinic like this and say, I have these and I want to be prescribed hormones, and the clinician will automatically prescribe hormones. He said, this is a horrendous situation. And in my column, I mentioned about how the state of Maine had just outlawed any clinician, any therapist, that is, psychotherapist, from doing anything but affirming when anybody comes in there and says, I know I was assigned at birth this sex, or this, now they call it gender, but I believe I'm this. You must say, oh, good, I see, okay, and then you must treat them this way. In the state of Maine, and in about 3 or 4 other states, you must do that as well. Also, if an adolescent goes to a parent and says that, it's the same thing. I want to get hormones. I want to, have surgery even, and the parent says no. This is wrong. I'm your guardian. The state can take the kid away. Now,
That's a lot.
It's been done in Ohio, and it's been I don't know where else. It was certainly done in Ohio. It's done in Canada, and this has taken over the profession. One more thing I'll say about him. He's asked, why are you filing this suit? He said, I spoke up because I'm at the end of my career. He's about our age. I have accomplished a lot professionally, and I had an established reputation. If someone like me can be demoted, harassed, and then effectively fired for expressing my views, think of what an intimidating effect this has on younger professionals who are not yet established in their careers, and that should not be how academics proceeds or how science proceeds. We think together, we reason together, we walk together, we talk together. My colleagues couldn't do that. And I think we will see that nationally as well. In other words, he can't possibly, you see what happened to Lisa Littman, you see what happened to this guy. If you speak up, if you go against the narrative, this is going to happen to you. Then he talks about, he said, I've heard from many of my colleagues from around the country who say, yes, I agree with you. I agree with what you said at the Heritage Foundation, but I can't say it. I cannot say it publicly. And that's the way it's going in academia. And this guy, and he's a doctor, he's a scientist. But he said, science doesn't have anything to do with this. He said, this is a movement with its own momentum, and and they use intimidation. And the policies that they're making are not science-based. He said, well, that's the direction of his profession, and he's sick about it.
Yeah. Well, I think the lawsuits, those kind of lawsuits are always good because they help define the new norms. That you're talking about really extreme examples here. I think in the general discussion of transgender is that we recognize transgender rights, that people can self-determine what they want to be, just in general, whether it's gay or transgender. I think that's 90% of the good. And I think anytime there's a movement or anytime there's something like that, it always gets pushed too far. And those examples obviously I have no idea because I don't go searching high and low for those type of things. And if they result and they just go too far and it's the lawsuits that help define those boundaries, those social norms for us, I think it's a very good. On balance, I think our society is a whole lot better from where we were years ago about transgender and gay. I'm all about giving people self-determination and rights. I'm a conservative, Tom. Individual
You are
rights.
about
You
some
can do what
things.
you want.
You're a libertarian.
A libertarian.
Which is many of whom are on the conservative side, but you're hard to pin down. I'll
Thank
give
you.
you that. Let's see.
I think that's it. How many? What did?
We don't have
Bill's-
much time left. There was something I wanted to bring up about there was some tweets that was sent out by one of the new asylum seekers in Portland, who's named Prince Pombo. I don't know if you've heard of him. So he said these people were offered homes in Brunswick, in Lewiston, Bath, and other places, and they're refusing to take them because they said, well, Ethan Strimling came and told us that we can have any house we want here. And there's a lot of money in the media. You're seeing there's a lot of money for us, and they should put us up in a hotel, and then they should give us any house we want. That's what we were promised. And so we're not going to take a house in Lewiston. We're not going to take a house anywhere else. So the Press Herald is playing it down, but that's what's going on. So I had some of his tweets, but I'll bring that
Is
up
Ethan
another
Strimling
time.
still the mayor?
He is. Yes, he is. So we'll see.
I'm
what
going to be
happens.
back in Portland. We're going to start up. We shuttered the Phoenix, but it's going to come back.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, some new
okay.
partners. So
Oh,
I'll
all
be
right.
back in.
Weekly?
Yeah,
Well, good.
yeah. So
All right,
I
don't give up,
I miss
huh?
the days going to visit Portland.
Yeah.
I know you're over there a lot.
I am. Yeah, I may be going tonight. I'll be going tomorrow.
What's your
I
favorite
volunteer
restaurant?
at the jail
What's
there.
your favorite restaurant? Or one of them.
Actually, what I like to do this time of year is a place called Terracotta, and it's just near the South Portland Cape Elizabeth line. And it's they sell takeout food, but it's very good. It's Italian, and they'll heat up something for you right there. Pizza, or not everything they sell they can heat up. And we'll take it and we'll go to Fort Williams and sit on a picnic table and overlook the channel and eat it there. That's my favorite
That's nice.
thing to do. Yeah.
Do you know that they're building?
Really
You've
do
probably
that.
read that about. They're building boarding houses in Portland, like old-fashioned
Yes.
turn of the last century boarding houses
Yes.
with a common bathroom.
A good idea.
A totally good idea.
Yeah.
So the rents will
indeed.
be like $700 instead of $1,700
for one room.
Yeah.
And a shared bathroom.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean
That's what we need here.
in North Conway. Well,
I'm not sure
why not?
I'm not sure why it's not done, frankly. Well, they have this J1 housing which is similar to that for the
Yeah. Yeah.
foreign kids, but anyway.
I think I would endorse that. I
Yeah.
mean, especially if it's private, and then even maybe Section 8 could take over something like that too.
I don't think you need it. I think Portland. I think it's developer. I think they're just developers doing it. It's filling
That's
the
good.
market.
That's good. I don't know how much time we have left, but we're just kind of talking to fill time now. But yeah, that's all right. You know, we're not media professionals, are we?
Right.
But
Well, we
you
don't have a
are.
countdown.
You are. I should
We don't
speak
have a countdown.
Speak for yourself, I say. We
Oh,
got
there's
1
the
minute.
countdown. There's the.
Yeah,
there's
we
the,
have 1 minute
There's the
left.
middle finger that comes through the door.
Well, we always have an interesting discussion, and I have homework to do on the Central Park 5, and you should await indictments. Oh, one more thing. The documents that have gone into what I believe is spying on the part of the Obama intelligence, those documents have been redacted and they have been classified. They're supposed to come out beginning today. So we should see some of those documents.
Now, am I coming in back the first of the month, or am I every 4 weeks?
Every 4 weeks.
Okay, so
Whatever-
regardless of that,
whatever,
so we
yeah.
get off schedule here because this is
Yeah.
the last day.
Yeah.
This is the 5th week.
Yep,
Okay,
weeks,
all right.
4 weeks from today. Thank you
Tough
very
to-
much.
okay,
for
thanks,
coming,
Tom. It's
Mark.
always a pleasure.
Indeed. All right. See you in a month.
Okay.